Tucker is out, but meme coins are in. Question everything, trust nothing. Welcome to Debate Crypto. It's Magic Money Monday, and we got the one, the only Bill Noble in the house for another Magic Internet Money Day, guys. How's it going? What's going on, Bill?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm excited. A lot of things have been happening. Meme coins clearly have been popping off like crazy. And just overall the markets. We're heading into May now. We've been covering what's been happening here in May, what could potentially happen here in May for some time, and we will continue to be covering. So I'm excited to talk to you about altcoins. Right, so Thursdays are always Bitcoin centric, but Mondays, like always, are about altcoins. And dude, it's been wild. I've been hearing about Pepe. I've been hearing about Gensler coin. I've been hearing about I think it was Per. It was like a cat coin, Per, and so many other coins that are either coming back down now from the top 10 or the top 15 or 20 that are making some good moves, and the meme coins are extremely making big moves. And could this be right? My whole thing is, could this be some signal for a top here with these meme coins now popping off drastically, kind of like that false sense of FOMO going into the bull market when we might not just be there just yet. But good thing we got you on the show to cover all that stuff today, man.
All right on.
Yeah, man. So what do you want to start off with first? You want let's do a quick little market overwatch. Actually, let's see where the market's at, because
Sure.
I haven't even seen some of these coins just yet. So let me hit this up. Here we go. Let me do a quick little refresh. So the whole market cap's down 0.015. That's nothing. We're still over $1 trillion. Bitcoin's holding on to 27. Had a little retracement from 30. 1,800 for Ethereum. I mean, realistically, we are not seeing anything drastic here at all. 12% on the week down. I mean, 1% in 24 hours. Overall, things don't look that terrible. I mean, we've been making massive moves these past couple of weeks. A little bit of a down movement here right now at this rate doesn't seem like terrible news to me. But I just want to remind everybody, smash those likes. Make sure you're following Bill Noble if you're not following him already. His link is down below in the description of the channel. And blow up that chat room, guys. We're going to be dropping a question in there real soon. So, Bill, where do you want to start off here? Do we want to start off with the meme coins, or you were telling me you had some special stuff you want to start with?
Well, let's start with meme coins, right?
All right, let's get it.
So Kermit and Pepe went up a lot. It was like a frog thing, right? Kermit went up massively and then crashed. Pepe is actually holding its value. What I'm hearing is that like Pepe's smile will be a function of where Bitcoin's price is. So Bitcoin goes up, Pepe will smile more. Okay. Now, this will tell you two things, right? I mean, this stuff all came out when Bitcoin was at 31K. So crypto, I mean, it was ApeCoin last year, right before Celsius, right? There's always an altcoin silly moonshot right before a correction. So in this case, it was frog mania right before, Bitcoin gets hammered from 31 something to 26 something. Okay.
And what causes this? What causes these meme coins to come out of nowhere?
Well, people, it's like fear of missing out, or it's like anger for missing out, right? So it's like, Bitcoin sat below 20K for like what, months, and no one wanted it. And then all of a sudden it goes straight up, alts go with it. And then everybody rushes back in and goes, okay, what am I going to buy? All right. And then everybody starts chasing meme coins because, I don't know, it's irresistible to people.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Irresistible.
so. I think it is definitely irresistible when you start seeing some of these people put in like $20, $100, and then they're like hundreds of $1,000s of profit, and you're like, man, all I needed to risk was $100, and I could have made like 100 grand plus. Or there's some people that made. I think there was somebody that made like became a millionaire with off $20, but clearly they got in super early, and I think they might even have liquidity issues where they might not be able to sell all that Pepe coin in the first place.
Right.
So
Nobody's, I
that's
mean,
always a
if,
problem.
if you're a millionaire off Pepe, you had to have been selling that all the way up in order to cash out the money. You know, look what happened in Kermit when someone tried to cash out. It was like, you know, it vaporized. All
Do
right.
you have a chart for Pepe? Just so that people can see the madness of Pepe.
Yeah, I got it right here. So this is actually this is Kermit, right? So that was Frog Mania. Okay. So the price scale on Pepe is a little bit difficult, right? Okay, but obviously this going from effectively zero vertical like this, you know, it's a huge percentage gain. Now, what is interesting about Pepe is
It looks like a double top, right?
well, it could be a double top, or it's trading in this like box. In other words, you know, what you want to be careful of in altcoins is you want to see these spikes up and then it collapse, particularly if it's a down move. Now, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, you know, I personally think Bitcoin is better because now there's a lunar eclipse on May 5th. So, you know, Bitcoin rallied into the solar eclipse, and we can go into it later. You know, I don't know if this is the play, but clearly this is trading differently than stuff like Kermit. Like this is actually like holding itself together. Now, of course, it could vaporize later, but these are symptoms that people are focused. They're panicking because they didn't make money. And you want to know what's funny? They're going to make the same mistake again. They're going to make the same mistake. They're going to focus on this, which could go up maybe. And then they're going to miss possibly like 26 to 32K in Bitcoin, kind of on a rope. I mean, that's how I'm seeing it. You know, so, you know, meme coins, okay, great. But why are you doing meme coins because you're frustrated? Are you doing meme coins because it's interesting? Or, you know, you hear somebody made a lot of money investing in this early. I mean, how many stories? I mean, are you going to chase the same altcoin that the guy next to you in a bar did? Or are you going to be able to take advantage of 20, 30% moves? Then you can peel off profit. Then you can play in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. The problem with meme coins for me is you always hear about the success stories, right? You always hear the 5, 10 people that, or, you know, let's say even 100 people or so that made a ton of money, right? Some of them are professional traders that were able to catch onto something really early. Other people are part of like these pump and dump groups, right? And they get in super early and tell you about their success. But nobody talks about the amount of failure into these meme
Oh,
coins and the amount of
oh,
money
dude.
that people lose,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And nobody talks those stories. Everybody just wants to focus on the exceptions, not the rules. That, you know, these meme coins could definitely wreck you, especially when people start thinking about, you know, the huge percentage, the 1,000x, 10,000x stories that people talk about. They're like, well, they did that with $20. What if I put in $2,000, right? What if I put in $5,000, right? Get in, get out real quick. And then you lose a ton of money because you buy into these narratives. And it's not because people don't make money, but it's just so dangerous. The level of risk versus reward for me is just not worth it. That's why I never participate in these things. But, you know,
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see with these wicks up here. I mean, you can
yep.
definitely see distribution, right? That in technical analysis, that's what it's called, right? In other words, the guys who bought it, you know, the guys who bought it down here, right, are distributing it to the people who are buying up here. Now that doesn't mean this may not have more upside, but everybody wants to talk about this, and nobody wants to talk about the fact that 26K on Bitcoin may be like, I don't know, you may look back on that and be like, oh my God, I had a dip. I had a chance to get it at 20 something and missed it again.
Yes, dude, exactly. Again, right? That's the big thing. Again, so many people were wishing that they could get into Bitcoin and any altcoins with it pulling back to 26K, right? With Bitcoin pulling back, the altcoins obviously were going to pull back as well. They're like, man, when Cardano was $2, $2.50, right? People were like, man, I wish I was buying at 50 cents. I wish I would have been buying it at 80 cents, right? Now we're down at 38 cents, like you pointed earlier. And yeah, people don't want to talk about that. People want to talk about meme coins like this. Yeah. And want to get involved with all this other shenanigans, or they're just not even in the market at all. They're like, no, I'm just gonna keep waiting for it to go lower and lower and lower. And so far it has been proven that the people that were waiting for 10K or lower for Bitcoin have missed out, unless we go there eventually at some point before this next happening, which I don't really see happening, but I could be wrong. Anything can happen. Those people missed out because they waited too long on the sidelines. And that's why I practice dollar cost averaging. It's not because it's just, I'm not a trader, so I'm not going to be waiting for the perfect trades. I'm not going to be getting in and out of positions. And I just think of that all the time. Every single time I wish I could have gotten at a lower price point. If it gets anywhere near that price point again, I'm going to buy it. Even if it goes lower, I'll just dollar cost average lower, but I'm not going to just wait around and say, well, I'll wait a little bit longer. I already made that mistake in 2018 and 2017. I decided that I was never going to make that mistake again.
Yeah. I mean, the lack of the buy the dip mentality is notable. One of the other things that's notable is if you think about this lunar eclipse, right? The FTX cycle, the FTX debacle rather, started with a solar eclipse. So eclipse in November, eclipse in April, and then another eclipse in May. The eclipse in May, as I understand it, brings eclipse season to an end. So according to the resources that I have, whatever started in November ends in May. Right. In other words, this whole idea that Bitcoin is going to go take out the lows, I don't know. I think this lunar eclipse sort of takes that out of the mix. So a lot of people looking at 26 going, oh, I don't know if I could touch that. Dude, I got news for you. Legacy investors, I'm getting phone calls. I'm getting phone calls from like 40-year-old people who have made truckloads of money doing other things, going, hey, man, I just read the Bitcoin standard. How do I get involved? Right. So legacy investors are used to buying dips. They go, oh, yeah, it's down 10%. Oh, well, let's get involved. Right. I mean, they were trained to do that in stocks for 10 years. They may do it in Bitcoin.
Exactly. Right. The dip is very important. The bear market is extremely important for people to realize that this is the time where you actually make your big wealth. The wealth doesn't get created later in the bull market, right? That's where you reap what you sowed. But if you're just sitting out, or if you're just spending money on dumb things, taking a bunch of risk when it's not really necessary, and mismanaging your portfolio or your funds, you're going to pay for it in the bull market. And yeah, you still might make money because at some point there's enough frenzy that no matter what you throw a dart at, you're going to make some dollars on. But at the end of the day, in crypto, I have the mentality that accumulating crypto isn't about, I'm accumulating this so I can make more dollars. I'm accumulating this asset so I can get more of this asset that eventually is going to become scarcer, eventually is going to become more valuable, and I don't have to eventually ever sell out of my position because I got in so low, right? And Bitcoin is one of those things where, with everything that's happening now with the BRIC nations, I heard about 19 more countries are signing up. At least right. I think 13 of them have signed up.
Right.
I think a few others are informally still just trying to figure out what's happening over there, and they're interested. As we see this movement away from the dollar, as we see the dollar continue to collapse, slowly disintegrating with everything that's happening with the money printer, the manipulation of the currency over the last 2 years. Bitcoin is the only asset that there's going to be 21 million of ever. It's going to continue to deflate in value. It's going to continue to get stronger and stronger. And there's going to be a time where you're just not going to be able to afford an entire coin. You're not going to be able to afford half a coin. You're not going to be able to afford a quarter of a coin. And you're then at some point, we're just going to be talking about, hey, how many Satoshis do you have? How many,
Right.
and that's going to be the denomination, is going to be Satoshis, because it's just going to be so valuable. Nobody in the average retail world is going to be talking about half a Bitcoin or a full Bitcoin. That's going to be like, a whole nother level of money that people won't even fathom at that point. So what other altcoins are you looking at right now throughout this moment after this little bit of a dip?
Okay. Well, I mean, before I get into that, I do have Bitcoin, and I just discovered that, right around this 28K level, ironically, that was the low in January of 2021, right before this thing took off. So I'm not advocating a move to 60K, but I am advocating that, Bitcoin took off from this level, a while back. So don't fade what can happen at 20K. So let's talk about Cardano first. Cardano is making a 13 bottom on a 4-hour chart. Currently, it doesn't trade well, but there's a lot of support at 37 cents. Now, I was also looking at Solana on a weekly chart, right? You look at the weekly chart of Solana, which, for whatever reason, everyone hates. Consensus is coming up soon. Frequently, you get the dip that you would want to buy on a 4. So this DeMark work 1, 2, 3, 4 is about the start of an uptrend. Solana went straight up and then it went straight down, right? So ask yourself into consensus, is Web3 going to emerge? Now, the altcoin that seems to be moving, which leads me to believe that there could be speculative juices coming back into the market, is DYDX. Okay. You have a 13 bottom in DYDX, and you've got this thing actually rallying when other coins are slumping. Now, in the past, I have seen DYDX do better, right, while the rest of the market is getting hammered. Okay. I remember DYDX in January actually put in a low and really started going up before the rest of the market did. Okay. So I'm really interested in this because in 3 days, you're going to have a 9 bottom on a daily chart. Okay. And, this could be a signal that headed into consensus, because Bybit's going away, right? So if Bybit is doing KYC, all this money has to go somewhere. I mean, Magic was on the show the other day talking about what a bummer it is that he's got to leave Bybit and head into DYDX, because, this exchange is not going to allow Americans anymore. So when you see DYDX doing well, it means the desire to trade crypto is still there. It's there. Right. And if you look at, again, at this 4-hour chart of Bitcoin, you got that 13 bottom. Okay. Now, as far as Pepe goes, let's go to a 30-minute chart. All right. Here's what's happening. Every time you get one of these green candles, right, sellers emerge. Right. It's distribution up here. I don't think I would blame anybody if they wanted to take a shot at this. But I mean, some of the research that I did with the new co-host, Toby, sort of seemed to indicate that Pepe was going to be kind of a one-hit wonder, meaning the upside that was going to get made has been made. Now, the other thing I was taking a look at headed into consensus is near. Here's why that's relevant. If Bitcoin actually turns around and rips to a new high, not every altcoin is going to do the same, right? Some altcoins may go, some may not. This is a 4-hour chart of near. This is kind of nifty where you have a 13 bottom on top of some really decent support. So, Avalanche looks like this, and so does near. I don't understand why Web3 is dead. The Financial Times reported that, Apple could come in and save banking. I'm like, what? When is
Well, yeah, Apple just did the whole the whole savings account now with 4.15% APY. So I think it's only a matter of time before, now that they're getting into finance, it's only a matter of time before they get into crypto.
Right. And I think the reason that they're in finance is because Goldman in their Apple card got kind of in trouble. Goldman financed the Apple credit card. So now Apple may be trying to do something to help the financial sector. Either way, I mean, when is Apple going to be talking about getting crypto on their phone? Well, headed into consensus, you have Avalanche at a 6, and sometimes trends end after you get to a 9. So 3 days from now, headed into consensus, I don't think you want to be short certain components of Web3. As a matter of fact, I think you want to be buying that because, if you look at just the retracement off the low, like nobody wanted Avalanche at $10. Nobody wanted it at $10, but at 20, it was much more attractive. Now, I'm being facetious, but, you're getting Avalanche right now at a 50% retracement near 17. Could this drop to 15? Well, maybe, right? But you kind of had a chance to get it there in mid-March, and it really didn't stay down there very long. Now, these guys have a partnership with Amazon, and then on a, bigger picture, what goes down one way, this went straight down. This went from 24 to 17 like that. This thing turns around. No, remember, the bigger the base, the higher in the space.
That's right.
Right. Right. This is the 90-minute version, right? This is the 90-minute version. Straight down, base for a couple of days, and then boom, right? So if Bitcoin goes to 32K, everyone's going to be like, well, I'm looking at whatever. Well, what about some of these bigger coins? Okay. So I don't think anyone is talking about 32K in Bitcoin. I think that was a big conversation when Bitcoin was at 30, because there is a lot of resistance there. But,
yep.
Bull markets can be characterized by sharp down moves, okay, followed by sharp up moves, right? So this is a little bit of a bold play to try to pull this up here, right? But if you look at S&P, if you look at S&P on a weekly basis, okay, and you go back to like, say, 2011, okay, back here in 2011, okay, this is, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. So everybody was selling stocks worried about these countries being able to pay their bills. Okay. Of course, what wound up happening is that the ECB came in and bought all of the debt in Europe. Okay. So stocks went down 22% on that, which is a lot, right? So it went down 22%, and then watch this, right? Once the thing bottomed, right? Once it bottomed, this thing went like straight up over a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-day period. Stocks went up 20%. So they spent all this time selling it, all this time getting upset, and then in 4 days, basically the whole move unwound itself. Now, I insured myself a little bit of job security by being positive down here. But, 20% up in 3 days. I mean, 20% in 3 days in crypto. I was like, that's an average. That's an average day at the office, right?
Yeah, but not in the traditional market. That's a big move.
Right, right. So how would you translate that over to crypto? Well, you would translate that over to crypto, right? In the sense that, you could go from 26 to 35 from 26 to 34 on a rope. And just remember, this is a Bitcoin miner hut, right? Bitcoin miner like this was trading at, 11, 16 was the high. And this thing is still sitting in its range. Now, this stock may have like fundamental issues, but like MicroStrategy, I mean, dude, if this is like a head and shoulders bottom in MicroStrategy, right? And this is like a difficult dip below the neckline where, they do what they do in markets, where they stop people out. Like everybody knows it's, everybody's constructive, but they stop everyone out. And then, dude, your upside target, if this pattern is correct, your upside target should be measured from the bottom of the head to the top of the neckline, projected from the point of the breakout. So MicroStrategy currently trades at 286 on April 24th. And if MicroStrategy recovers, the upside target is 490. Where is Bitcoin going to be if MicroStrategy is at 490? Now, again, this pattern took, 6 months to unfold. So I'm not advocating MicroStrategy goes right to 490, but Bitcoin can certainly go from 26 to 32 like that if people sleep on this market. Remember what happened when you slept on S&P in 2011? That turned out bad. You can't miss those kind of moves. You can't. Hedge funds
I
can't.
definitely missed that move. In 2011, I was a senior in high school. I was definitely not looking at anything in the crypto markets. So unfortunately, I missed that one time.
I know. I talk about these things like, 2011 is the modern market. Not for everybody. Not for everybody. I sometimes I talk about 1998 like it was yesterday, and people are just like, oh my God. There's even a couple people who comment that sometimes I'm actually holding a pen during my stream, and apparently nobody uses pens anymore. So
Like, what do you use that
what
for?
do you use this for, right? So I don't know. So, sometimes old school can help, particularly, since, behavior can repeat itself, like
Yeah.
in the bear market, they told you everything is all right and it wasn't. And then Bitcoin, does, a 15% correction. Everybody goes, it's going to make a new low, or I'm going to wait and buy it later. And those will be the people paying 32K.
Dude, I agree. I actually wanted to ask you something. I know today we're talking about altcoins, but I know this is about Bitcoin. So it involves altcoins eventually as well. So there was an article that came out, I believe, let me see if I can put it up on Twitter, about somebody calling for 100K Bitcoin by 2024. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up here. It says yes, it says $819 billion banking giant Standard Chartered,
Right.
says we see potential for Bitcoin to reach 100,000 by the end of 2024. Right? We all know that the halving happens in 2024, about May, April time. What do you think could lead Bitcoin to hit 100,000 by 2024? And then the follow-up question would be, where do you see some of these altcoins if that does happen?
Okay. So to be honest with you, I mean, again, banks, I used to work in these banks. A lot of times they don't have crypto specific analysts. So, I feel for these guys in a way, because they're trying to write about stuff that they don't know anything about. These things are written by like bond market analysts. So they're like, all right, what are we going to say about Bitcoin? Well, here's what they're going to say about Bitcoin. They know that there's $17 trillion inside the banking system. That's the total deposits in banks in the United States. There's $56 trillion in the global pension system. So all the pension funds in the world, like one of the biggest buildings in Austin, or the most impressive building is the Employee Retirement System of Texas. Huge, huge entities, huge, right? What happens if those people say, I want to put 1% of our money in Bitcoin? I mean, BlackRock and
That's
Fidelity.
a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, right? I don't have to gore you with the math, right? I did some math on ChatGPT. ChatGPT was like, based on volume in Bitcoin, if you had to put that much money in, if you had to put 1% of this money in over 6 months, that'd be 250K Bitcoin. Okay.
I'm feeling some FOMO.
Right. But I mean, if you look at Bitcoin dominance, right? Just look at this chart, right? This is a classic case of the bigger the base, the higher in the space, right? Bitcoin dominance has done nothing, right, except sit here. It has done nothing but just sit here. Sorry. Just take that out. Bitcoin dominance has done nothing since 2021 except make this square base. So when Bitcoin breaks out of this thing, out of this range, it's going to go back up to 72. I mean, it went straight down because Web3 took off. It's going to go back to 72. Well, what does the world look like with Bitcoin dominance at 72? It's got to be above its all-time high, right?
And that leads me into the whole thought process of Gary Gensler being grilled the last week by Congress about what was happening with cryptocurrencies, and he pretty much stated that, restated that so far the only thing that he can almost guarantee that's not a security, that it is a commodity, is Bitcoin,
Right.
which could then obviously propel Bitcoin's dominance, because institutions are looking for clarity on what they can and can't do. And if Bitcoin is deemed a commodity, that gives them all the clarity they need to continue to move forward with Bitcoin. Meanwhile, they still figure out the altcoins.
Right. And that's why BlackRock and Fidelity are buying MicroStrategy, right? Because it's not an ETF. It's not a futures contract, right? It's a stock of a computer company that happens to own a truckload of Bitcoin.
Yeah. And they're going to keep buying.
Right. And they're not going to stop. Their average price is 30K. So that's probably another group that's looking at 27 going, oh, goody. Right. I mean, you look at a 4-hour chart of Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin takes out 48%. It can go to 53. And just in case you think that's a big move, it's not, because it went from 41, right, to 48 in the first 3 months of this year. And most of that was a move from 43 in mid-March to 48 in mid-April. I mean, it's like 5 points like that. Now, back to Standard Chartered. They're like 100K Bitcoin by the end of 2024. What happens if there's a stock market event, a hurricane, and a geopolitical event all at once in September and October? Like, I'm promising you that the guy who wrote the book, who won awards from Barron's about 1929 and 1987, these guys are going to be calling for an event in September or October, right? And when that event, and when that event happens, right? When that event happens, that's when legacy investors are going to go, oh my God, I'm so done with this. I got to get in Bitcoin. I mean, Blackstone, Blackstone, you want to talk about the obvious? The biggest holder of commercial real estate in the whole world, the guy who runs it sold 7% of his holdings. So they pumped the market, Blackstone's stock, that is, from like 78 to 94. And then he dumped $25 million worth. And he thinks the Fed is going to be cutting rates sooner rather than later, probably because the whole company is going to implode. So just like in 2008, Now I know, you were, I know you were back in, you were doing the whole,
I was like a freshman in high school at that point.
right. You were doing the whole, the whole 14-year-old thing. In 2008, you had Bear Stearns in March. That was the first bank. That was the Silicon Valley Bank of the day. And then by September, you had multiple investment banks. You had AIG, an insurance company. You had everybody and their brother in trouble. And back then, the Fed eventually came in and did QE 6 months later in March. But I mean, stocks were massively lower. And I don't know what 5% or 6% inflation. I mean, yeah, the Fed can resort to QE, but where does the market, where does stocks and all that, junk bonds, where is all that going to be, right? By the time the Fed does have to come back in. I mean, Bitcoin is going to dip. Altcoins may get smacked in September and October. That's why I'm telling people to not marry stuff from the last cycle. You want to trade Avalanche, you want to buy it at 16 and sell it at 25 and then buy the dip. Okay. Right. But if you try to get married to altcoins that are not performing, and then you have an event in October, that's going to turn out badly. Whereas
what do you consider an altcoin that is performing versus not performing right now in this bear market? Like what are those characteristics?
Well, meaning it doesn't have like the punch that you would want it to have when you get the big move in Bitcoin, right? Like, just as an example, like Chainlink, right? Chainlink for a long time was considered a blue chip altcoin, and it hasn't moved. It hasn't moved, right? So you got to be asking yourself, this is true about the whole DeFi space. If stuff didn't move off the move in Bitcoin, are you going to get a move off? Is this going to recover anytime soon? Like the opposite of Link might be something like ICP, right? Like ICP went up. ICP was moving from $3.50 to $7.50 as Bitcoin was moving. So this is something that, did have a bid, but also notice, like I said, nothing outperforms forever, right? So this thing tried to rally again and got smacked. So 2 points. One, whatever outperformed last cycle, whatever was a blue chip last cycle may not be a blue chip next cycle. Two, if you chase the thing that outperformed recently, that may not be the right trade. What's the difference between Pepe and ICP? Well, people made a truckload of money on the way up, and now they're taking profits.
Exactly. Dude, that's a great point that you bring up about the one about what you just said about the Pepe thing and profits, but not getting married to things that came out in the last cycle that performed very well, right? Because one of the things that performed very well in the 2018 cycle was EOS. It was the Ethereum killer of that cycle, and EOS is dead. EOS didn't do anything last cycle, and nobody talks about it. That's not a live project anymore. So whatever we thought was the next Ethereum killer, or whatever you want to call it, of the genre of what, whatever you're getting into in crypto, last cycle might not be around this next cycle coming up. So a lot of people do fall into that trap a lot of times, where they just continue to dollar cost average into the same old cryptocurrencies without doing any research on new cryptocurrencies that are coming out, that are performing better, what's staying up to date, what are the things happening, because they have this mindset that, well, it did very well last time, it's going to do well again. That might not be the case.
Right. Altcoins are for trading. If you want to do altcoins, then you want to make sure you have capital in December, because that's when the whole crypto space will wake up. Because one of the things people are going to realize, I look at Raven Coin, somewhere in here, there's going to be security tokens. That could be Polkadot's big play, right? Because you're not going to have any liquidity in legacy one of the things that you need to have a crash is lack of a bid, lack of liquidity, right? All the elephants trying to get through the door, all the elephants trying to sell at the same time.
So do you think we're going to have a crash? When you say crash, you talking about the stock market crash, or you talking about crypto as well in that October, September time, and then starting the rally in December?
Right. Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking. In other words, if you have a major stock market event, crypto is going to get caught in that. That could create a dip in Bitcoin. Like, I was kind of wondering if they could take it up to 45. There'd be a dip. Then. Right. Crypto goes to Bitcoin goes to 45. Then it dips hard in September. And then when Legacy goes in October, Bitcoin decouples. And then the whole massive crypto cycle starts at the end of the year. That's a guess, right? Oof. I mean, right. It's what Standard Chartered is talking about, right? Standard Chartered is basically saying, you want to come out of this year long. That's what they're saying. Now, what Standard Chartered is not telling you is, like, could Bitcoin make a new high as early as February of next year? People have become so used to Bitcoin as an instrument that doesn't really move much, right? I don't think that's a good idea to get, like, married to this concept that Bitcoin can't move, that you can't get a 10x in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I that's definitely didn't in 2021 that you were talking about earlier today with Bitcoin. Didn't Bitcoin like double up in price from like the 20s to the 40s within like 30 days of January in 2021, something like that?
Right. I mean, once Saylor pushed it through 20, it went to 60. It went to 60.
Yeah, man.
Right. And then, you got to be careful in everything from Bitcoin, Pepe, wherever the bid comes into the market, right? When they come after this thing, who's they? Crypto retail is about this big and Legacy is this big, right? People who are in Legacy called me up this weekend. I just read the Bitcoin Standard. They wanted to buy a course from me. I said, well, you're going to have to wait till my boys from Debate come up with their course. I gave him BitBoy's book, right? And then I just told them to call me. We'll do Zoom, because I mean, these people want to buy it, they want to store it, or they want to cold store it. People, this is not the only high net worth individual that's thinking about this, right?
That's the thing. I think we haven't seen what big money can really do for Bitcoin once the floodgates are open. We saw a little bit of what they did this last cycle by pushing it all the way to 69 2 times, right? But that's, I think, what we consider big money right now in crypto is still, like you said, very, very small. They're just dipping their toes in the cold water and seeing what the temperature is like. I think when the floodgates open and they have a massive move away from the US dollar, a hedge against the next world status currency, the BRIC nations, the digital gold collection, that and it becomes that gold rush 2.0 in the digital space, and they see that Bitcoin is the solution to it. SEC is saying, yeah, this is the only thing that is a commodity that has no doubt, there's no issues with securities or any laws, and the money floods in. I think we can see massive moves into Bitcoin's price that will then push people into the super cycle, which is one of the reasons why I've touched upon this super cycle theory. What could kick it off? How will we know when we're in it, right? Because I think that is the next big thing, is for Bitcoin to really go astronomical, completely break the charts, because all the charts are good that track Bitcoin's price movements back and forth until they break. And it's only a matter of time before they break, and then the old model doesn't work anymore. And I think this next cycle could be that model breaker that we're just not expecting. And that's when, things fire off. And then from there, moving on, but before the end of the decade, that's when Bitcoin starts to become a really mature asset and we start to see more of a stabilized movement moving forward. But I think the rocket fuel is this next, I don't know, just a feeling that everything you're saying, right, that just validates that feeling a little bit more.
Right. And then back to Standard Charter, you know, I was walking with an analyst. I remember walking on the streets of Hong Kong way back in the day with one of Goldman's analysts. And this guy said the way he wrote his reports is that, you know, he would contact and talk to, you know, a sample of like 10 or 11 clients, get their view on whatever he was looking at, and compile a report as a collection of what all the big clients were thinking of it. So this guy from Standard Charter didn't say, let me enter my bubble and, you know, get out my crystal ball and see what Bitcoin's going to do. No, he talked to the sales force, or he talked directly to the clients, right? And he got the pulse of the clients, and their clients telling him, like clients like Fidelity, right? Those are the clients of banks like Standard Charter and Goldman. You know, these guys are telling Standard Charter, yeah, I'm coming in to buy Bitcoin. You dip this thing on me, you know, we're going to start moving from certain, you know, we're going to sell certain components of legacy. And every time the crypto nitwits dip Bitcoin, we're going to be there. Yeah. And we're going to go after it in December. So, you know, you got to ask yourself, where did that guy get that idea?
Yeah, man. I wonder, I really do wonder if Bitcoin can double up to a, you know, double up gold's market cap before the end of this decade. I don't know, man. I see a lot of, I had a conversation with somebody over the weekend about Bitcoin versus US dollars and, you know, the whole shebang. They're not in crypto. So I was kind of explaining to them the whole process. And they're just so stuck on the idea of gold and US dollars being the thing to always, that everyone's always going to want. That's what, you know, holds the standard up. And I just think, do you think that Bitcoin can hit $1 million coin? I think that's the market. I think that'd be the price if the market cap is double of gold's, which would be like 22 trillion. My math could be a little bit off there, but do you think that can happen before the end of this decade?
Well, I mean, I try to stay away from things like $1 million Bitcoin, but here's what I can tell you. A lot of people think that, you know, the Chinese currency is going to take over as the world's reserve currency. I don't agree with that. I agree with this. Gold could become the world's reserve asset, right? So if you got gold, you know, you have the reserves necessary. You know, the Chinese and the Russians have a lot of gold, yes, but gold is the world's reserve asset. Now, if that's true, where does that put Bitcoin? Bitcoin's got to ride right next to gold and silver. I mean, if you look on precious metal sites like Tex Metals, I mean, you're paying like $10 over spot to get into a silver eagle. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have seen that. Yes.
Yeah. And that's, if you're a high net worth individual, that's clearly better than leaving your money in the banking system. That's why that bid is there. So they're like, oh, well, I could lose 30% on silver or all of my money in a bank. Right. Yeah. But they're paying $10 over spot for silver, which is going up, in my opinion, not investment advice. But nobody wants Bitcoin on a dip. I'm like, what? So, you know, it's the psychology. It's not the price target long term. It's the psychology of what Bitcoin can represent, right? Like the Bitcoin standard.
Yes.
Right. So, you know, what becomes the standard in crypto when everybody goes, I want something different. Because right now, the legacy investor, because they were in high school the last time it happened, people don't understand that this is 2008 all over again, except it's worse. It's worse.
Yes, I do agree with that. Right. Like, as I've learned what happened in 2008, as I've learned about what's been happening, and I learned more and more about finance and everything that's happening, it's the reason, it just validates the reason why I got into crypto, why I got into Bitcoin. You know, the Bitcoin standard is what, you know, lit up the way for me to start learning all these things. And I completely agree with you. It's just a matter of time before the sentiment and people start to realize, if you like gold, if you like silver, if you like something not tied to a government that is not being manipulated and inflated, and all these things are happening to all these invisible taxes are happening on your money that you could lose, Bitcoin is the solution to that. And I know this is today's episode is supposed to be about altcoins, right? But altcoins are so heavily dependent on Bitcoin. Maybe someday in the future, when Bitcoin completely decouples and becomes its own mature assets, the altcoins will no longer be tied to Bitcoin's price movement. But for the foreseeable future, where Bitcoin goes, the altcoins will follow. So you can't have a discussion about altcoins and what could possibly be happening to some of them without knowing what is happening to Bitcoin first. And that's as simple as that. So I hope people understand that's why we talk about Bitcoin so much, even on a day like today. I see that you wanted to share your screen.
Right. Just one word. To legacy investors, Bitcoin is an altcoin. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Bitcoin is a wildly speculative asset, for legacy investors. And then this thing that I wanted to share, Michael Saylor just came out and released a video with this, Fox News anchor that was regrettably, dismissed. And Michael Saylor says the whole point of Bitcoin is to escape the inflation vortex that has consumed all these previous empires, right? And he's actually tagging this poor individual, that took the fall for whatever his news network did regarding voting machines. Okay. So, Bitcoin is about freedom. Altcoins is about the future of technology and the internet. And there's going to be plenty of time to focus on that. What you don't want to do is get stopped out, washed out, and discouraged because you're playing in last cycle's plays and you missed this whole idea about Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is an altcoin for legacy. And they're coming.
Dude, exactly right. That's I've never thought about it that way. I've never really looked at it that way, but that's perfectly said. Bitcoin is the altcoin for the legacy market. And when they jump in right there, what you see happening for Pepe, you're gonna see happening for Bitcoin when the big money really jumps in and goes all in. And like you said, it is unfortunate what happened there to Tucker. I mean, it's wild, man, what's happening in the world overall, and it's just goes to show you more and more why freedom of money, right, the separation of money from the state is so important, and that is why Bitcoin is such a solution. And Michael Saylor hits it on the nail, like always. Is every single currency in history has been manipulated and destroyed by its own creators, right, its own governments. And people just don't seem to understand that. Everybody seems to believe that the dollar this time around will be different compared to the rest of history's mankind, when we're doing the same practices that the rest of mankind has done to their currencies, manipulate it and inflate it and devalue it to the point where there's no return, and you can just kick the can down the road so long until something happens, something breaks, and then it's all over. But in the meantime, the people that were able to get out, jump ship, find the new currency that they could jump into that actually held the value and continue to be valuable for the foreseeable future, those people, those people are like bandits. And that's what I think Bitcoin is for what we're facing right now in the legacy system. It's just that's the saving, what you call it, the life floaty thing, the thing that saves your life, whatever the word is.
The life preserver.
Right now. There you go. There you
go. Right. You don't, it's this is like a prepper channel, right? Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Right.
Dude, so true.
Right. So, at 26K, like, not only was like the right-wing news anchor was let go, but they simultaneously let another company let, a left-leaning anchor go.
Oh, right? Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Don, whatever, what's his name?
Right. Don Lemon.
There you go. Yes.
So, you got to start asking yourself, who's in charge of messaging out there? If like both news networks fire a guy, follow guys that I think they were in the same time slot, follow guys in the same time slot on the same day, who's in control of what information you get?
Exactly. That's what goes to show you that there is no left and right. There's only one top figure, right, pulling all the strings and making you believe that there's two sides to the story and that you guys need to be against each other the whole time, when there really isn't. There's only one narrative, one agenda, and they're just trying to feed it to you in different ways and make you believe that it's two different stories. And the minute that they don't deem them worthy, they'll cut them and replace them with somebody else that will push the story the way they want it to be pushed.
Listen, if you don't take control of your own finances, if you're not prepared, food, water, in other words, the market is giving you time to get ready. The beautiful thing about the everything is all right period in any crisis is that it gives you time to get ready as long as you don't get lulled to sleep, right? Don't sleep on Bitcoin. Don't sleep on being prepared, and just in general, right? I mean, do you have a 6-gallon NATO gas can in your garage filled up, ready to go in case, I don't know, there was a hurricane and gasoline refineries in the Gulf got shut down? That's just an example, right?
Dude, I mean, look how easy it is. There was a pretty decent rainstorm here 2 weeks ago for about 5 days straight, day and night, didn't stop raining, right? Felt like Noah all over again, the whole 40 days of 40 nights of rain. Things got flooded. They had to shut down the airports because of how much rain that the wheels of the airplanes were being covered in water, right? They shut down the airports. That happened for 4 days. After those 4 days, there was automatically a fuel shortage here, and price of fuel spiked, and gas stations ran out of gas because a few trucks of gasoline couldn't make it down here during that week and a half that the storm was happening. Everything was so flooded. For about 4 to 5 days, there was a gas shortage, and gas stations literally were down with no gas in the pump on a small little storm that lasted 4 days. Imagine if it was something serious, how quickly the whole network of infrastructure that exists, that we believe is impeccable, can collapse, right? We've seen what happened in Ohio earlier this year with the train. We saw what just happened recently with the 18,000 cows that burnt up. We saw all over, I think it was over 100 food facilities last year that all burnt up as well. All these things are happening in the background. You don't hear about it. We don't hear about it, but they're happening. And it's only a matter of time before enough little events happen that a big consequence will come from. And your entire infrastructure will fail at that moment. And then everybody's like, oh, I'll just run to Walmart and load up when that happens. So that way I don't spend my money now. That's the greatest mistake of them all, right? That's like trying to sell the top of cryptocurrency. Don't worry, I'll just sell out when we hit the top. How would you know when the top happens? It's going to happen so fast. You're going to come right back down. It's going to crash, and you're not going to be able to make it out in time. Same exact thing in real life. You're not going to make it to the stores on time. Things will completely go off the shelves. They will be gone. There will be no more. And then you're just going to be left there wondering what you're going to do and hoping that somebody is going to come save you. And when that is most likely not the case.
Trouble does not make an appointment, right? You did not get a notification on your phone that says, attention citizens of Miami, it will rain for 4 straight days. It will be like Noah's flood, and you will not be able to get gasoline. You did not get that notification. It just happened. So if trouble doesn't make an appointment, you need to apply that to finances. You need to not be long stuff that could get hammered when the market goes down. And you need to try to be long stuff that when the market goes up, that thing or those things outperform. That's why we discussed Bitcoin today, because Bitcoin, could lead. And the question for altcoins is what follows, what will follow Bitcoin? That's what you really have to answer. Now, I threw out Near, I threw out Avalanche, I threw out those ideas. DYDX perked up. Okay, you don't know, but you know what? The market will tell you when it starts. It'll tell you.
Dude, 100%. Perfectly said. Bill, I thank you so much for coming on the show here every Monday, every Thursday. You put in great, amazing work. So, guys, if you're not following Bill, make sure you go to the link in the description. Go follow him on his channel. Go follow him on Twitter, too. Drops bombs of knowledge on Twitter if you're not aware of it. So, if you're big on Twitter, definitely go follow him as well on Twitter. Make sure you show him some love and support. He comes on here every single week, twice a week sometimes, to really, really show you guys great information and for free. Right. So show him some love and do that. Smash the likes if you haven't smashed the likes already. And remember to always question everything, trust nothing. And until next time, hodl like it's hot. See you guys.